Hello, it's me, Brojo Ghost. I have finally completed my book binding project. So this is the end result. It is now bound with raised bands here and a hasp made of brass, bound in leather and on oak book boards. So it's finally finished. I don't have any in-between progress. Since my last video I was just mostly doing the calligraphy. My tools were standard calligraphy pens, just various nibs, and this one happens to have a feather on it. I also have these two macaw feathers that I cut into nibs, and I've used them in the bookbinding project as well. And of course my drafter's compass for drawing circles, and also with making measurements as well. That was a good help for that. Now, I left you off when I still had just loose pieces of paper that I had done the calligraphy on, and they weren't folded yet. And so when I was done with all the papers, I folded them with a bone folder. This is just a plastic $5 bone folder that you can find at any craft store. Well, hopefully almost any craft store. And it just assists in a smoother crease, and you just kind of go across the crease line with it like that, and once over it's a perfect crease. So it's a nice little thing, and it won't do anything damaging to the papers like scratch them or scuff them or anything. So that was that. Once I had them bound, I've shown you this before. This is my little practice booklet that I made before I began the project, where it shows that I practiced using raised bands and stitching these groups of pages together. So, like that one. So that was just a small scale practice run, and to make sure I could do it without screwing anything up. And it's pretty sturdy. Like, if it breaks now, I'll be surprised, but I mean, it'll take some abuse. And this is without glue as well. So what I had done is I took all my loose papers I had, folded them, and then grouped them into pages of 6 sections each. And of course, as I was going along, I had been pre-planning which pages are going to go where, because I think, like I stated before, you'll have page 58, which, if you follow the way it goes, wraps around in I think there are either 4 or 6 pages in here, but if you follow it around to the other side, the other opposite end is page 64. So if this was one of those pages, and this one would be page 58, and then over here would be page 64, I had to plan all of that out ahead and plan where I was going to be positioning all the content. And so that took a majority of the time, I think. And it was well worth it, because in the end I did it right. So here we have my book with the end papers. These end papers are made out of Tyvek paper. It's the same stuff that they use underneath house siding. It's very durable. It won't tear very well. Like, I actually tried to tear some, and I couldn't tear it. I could stretch it and kind of make it wrinkle a little bit, but it's just the way the fibers are spun out of whatever the machine makes the Tyvek paper. So I thought that would make a good end papers, because when books age, the first thing that starts to go is the crease right in here in the end papers. So I thought Tyvek would be a good thing to hold that together, and plus it has a combustion temperature of about 700 or 750 degrees, which is like 300 degrees hotter than the temperature at which paper will burn. So I think Tyvek tends to melt, though. I don't know. I didn't do a whole lot of research into it, but I think it's a good idea. And plus, I took some diluted brown ink mixed with water, and the way it painted itself onto the Tyvek paper, it has this kind of marbled effect. Anyway, moving on, we got the title page and various items, and then the content. So it all turned out very nice. The book finally has come together, and it weighs almost 2 pounds. It is very heavy for what I thought it would be. And it's a good thing I have the hasp on it too, because it tends, if I give it a few minutes, you'll notice that it kind of wants to lift up. And I think that's because of how tightly I wrapped the leather around the oak boards. So, and it's a good tight hasp too, so the hook should not slip out. And the hook, hasp, and all that is riveted on with brass rivets. I was going to put these little corner protectors on the corners of the wood, or corners of the book, like so, but in comparison for the size of the rest of the book, I think they're a little too puny, and plus, with the leather wrapping around it, it's so rounded that these would be awkward, and this corner would just catch on everything. So I didn't really want to mess with it, because I would have had to put, the way I wanted to do it, I didn't want to just glue them on. I wanted to put rivets through them, and they're really kind of small to put 2 rivets in each. And then that would be on 4 corners of the book here. So I decided it'll look just fine the way it is. And so the oak board, this is remnant of what's left of the oak board. That's what's inside this right now. So oak, being a tough, heavy wood, puts a lot of weight on the book, as well as the glue. There's a lot of glue in here. The glue I used was E6000 industrial strength modern glue. I think I looked it up, and it's like a rubber type of glue, but it's not rubber cement. But it's acid-free. It is toxic, but non-flammable, waterproof, and flexible. So those are all good things for a book to have. And so that is what is holding this all together. What else? Oh, the leather I used came from pieces of one of my really old leather coats that I had. So that coat is still going to very good use. The ink I was using in the calligraphy is just this $2 packet of powdered ink. It's a colonial style, I believe it is made of soot and gum arabic and some other stuff. And they call it lamp black ink because they would scrape the black soot that accumulates in oil lamps. And then they mix it with gum arabic and simmer it down till it's this cake, and they crush it up, put it in a little packet for me, and now I got powdered dry ink, and I just put it in some water, almost boiling water, and then I have ink. That's what I was using. And of course, ruler, protractor, very useful. And then to punch the holes for stitching the spine together, I have this tiny little, I think it's called an artist's awl or a student's awl or something like that. I think it's a student's awl because it's a cheap one. And then my silk thread that I use. Next time I make a book, I might not use oak boards or wood boards at all. I might settle for what is called bookboard, which is basically just this thick, solid cardboard type stuff that's in a majority of hardcover books these days.